Hello and welcome to the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you live a happier, healthier, and stronger life. Building a life that you love starts with you owning your health and intentionally creating the best version of yourself. So if you're looking to better understand how proper nutrition, daily movement, mindset work, and strength training can help you create a life full of happiness and health, then you are in the right place. I generally hope that the tips, tricks, and information that we share will be the catalyst for change. I'm your host, Adam Lane. It's time to dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lane. With me today from Life Nutrition, Miss Krystal, Mrs. Krystal, Bolduc. Finally sort of got that out.
Oh, that's great.
Bolduc. There we go. Krystal, thanks for joining us.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for being here.
So glad.
I'm glad we connected.
So excited. Just have a conversation with you today.
I don't know, listeners, this is going to be a good one. I don't mean to.
No pressure.
Not that we don't have other good ones, but this is going to be a very good conversation. Yeah. We're going to go lots of different angles here. Krystal, and just a little conversation that we had before pre-roll here. I say little, quite a big conversation we had before pre-roll. There's a lot of things that get in the way of people's health and wellness. And there's a lot of rocks to uncover with this. I love your take on so much of this because it's not gimmicky and hokey. It's not, hey, this next thing. Oh, finally the Ozempic came out and I can But here, I don't want to get too far down that. For the tens of people that listen to the show who might not know who you are and why you're such a big deal, tell these people who you are and why you're such a big deal.
Oh, man. Well, it depends on what circle, right? Sometimes I'm not a deal at all. I've had Life Nutrition for 13 years. I'm a food therapist and I'm a holistic integrative nutritionist. And I really say, I didn't ever choose to do this work. It chose me. Yeah. It's been my weight and health has been my lifelong struggle. And so I went on my first diet when I was in third grade. Because back in the 80s, I was one of the very few children then that was obese. And so that started this tumultuous relationship with food and body. And so as I found freedom and as I started to gain victory in the journey, of course, I could not just keep that to myself.
Yep.
And before I knew it, I was helping people all over the country, women all over the country, heal their relationship with food and body and learn how to nourish their bodies in a way that's sustainable and grounding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said food therapist. Mm-hmm. What is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people ask that. So anything, when we do anything, we have a relationship with something, right? So, really it's not so much when we're talking in the nutrition space, we forget about the relationship with food and we kind of just skip to the knowledge about food. Yeah. And so the relationship with food is the foundation of not just what we eat, but how and why we eat. Okay. And really it's using this doorway of conversation around food and frustrations with food and self to tap into deeper things. Okay. Right. So we're emotional beings, right? Life is centered around food. We're made to enjoy food and have relationship around food. And so that's an area that is really lost in the health and wellness space. So food psychology, it's a thing. Yeah.
Do you find there being, I don't know how much work you do with men with this. Is there a difference between food therapy with women versus food therapy with men?
I feel like yes. Okay. Because women are wired different. We have
what?
Yeah, a little bit.
No kidding.
A little bit. Yeah, that masculine is wired differently than the feminine. We are more emotional. We tend to be more the feelers. We tend to be more the impulsive when it comes to how we want to feel or even awareness of how we feel. And so, I actually have niched down where I don't even work with men. Why? Because I'm not a man. Yeah. And it kind of just gives me that, permission to speak into all areas of the feminine design.
Yeah. I know every year we give a nutrition presentation just in some direction. with our volleyball athletes, and there's a bunch of them, and we'll do it with do the presentation with the boys, that program that I'll give, and I'll put a different spin on it than what we present to the girls. Even though in essence, it's basically the same information. Yeah. Like, hey, too many of our kids are skipping meals, skipping days of eating. And then when they eat garbage. I don't even know how they're walking half the time. You know, they had gummy bears and a piece of pizza on the day. And now they're coming to 3 hours of training. Like, I don't know. But I struggle with presenting the same information to the girls, because I think I'm very just like, oh, guys, just eat this, like, to do it, and right. Like they,
not a big deal.
Like you said, they're a little bit more emotional with it, even at a younger age. And I know there's there's some study, or I can't remember the research of it, but most girls start their first diet at the age of blank, something super young, middle school, maybe elementary school. You said 3rd grade.
Yeah, for me,
which is young.
Yeah.
And I think guys are a little bit different like that, even though I think there's something there, but I struggle with, trying to, I don't know, teach these girls to fuel themselves, because I'm much less, I don't know, emotional with it. Just eat the food. I don't know. Just eat the meat. What is there? Well, I don't know if I did. Oh my gosh. That's interesting. So specifically specializing with the women, and the other title you held there was "Don't Let Me Mess It Up."
Keep going. You've almost got it.
Integrative. Food.
Holistic.
Food.
Nutritionist.
Just wanted to throw the word food in there. So what does that mean? Yeah.
So integrative health in general, integrative holistic health is looking at core design, root causes, right? So say somebody is dealing with an autoimmune issue, or even weight, right? Like obesity. What's the root cause? Yeah. What's going on? Because weight is just a symptom of something else that's going on inside of your body, whether it's your body speaking and crying out for help, or something within the machine, within the system is not in rhythm. And that's why, these young people can eat the piece of pizza or the gummy bear, because their rhythm, their system is not yet inundated with toxicity. And so that's why a lot of people will hit like 30s and they're like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden, like just this thing happened. Well, that bucket of your body, which is your rhythm, your liver, your pancreas, your kidneys, your thyroid, all of that now is toxic. And now it's not able to do what it was designed to do. Yeah. So root cause medicine is really what integrative holistic practices are. Yeah. So instead of looking at the symptoms, we get to, okay, why? And so one thing that I say a lot in my practice is we're not just looking to learn to get the weight off. We're also wanting to learn how you keep gaining the weight back when it comes to weight, when it comes to symptoms, to energy. How do I keep getting back in this? So what's the root cause? What's underneath? Yeah. So there's a long answer too. Which is not, I think, not the way most people think about weight gain, weight loss. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this juice cleanse. I'm going to do this 30-day challenge of something or other where I never eat a carb and blah, 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 blah. And then hit my ideal weight. And then I'll go back to doing the other things I was doing. Right. But I'll keep the weight off this time and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I'm assuming you see a lot of yo-yo dieting stuff going on, that people come to you with their... Actually, I don't know who you see. I guess let's start with that. Who do you normally see? Who comes to you for help? No, intuitively, you're right on. So my small little niche in the world of wellness and this food therapy thing is for the people that are like, you know what? I've been doing diet after diet after diet, and I've done it all. And there's nothing else for me to do. They're in a hopeless place. And so then they find me and they're like, oh, maybe there's more to this thing than just the diet. Maybe there's more to this thing than just the calories, than the calorie counting, the macro counting, all of that. And that was my journey. Okay. So I don't know if you know this, I'm sure you do, but I used to be 130 pounds heavier.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Holy cow.
So that's...
I knew heavier. I did not know 130 pounds heavier.
Yep, 130 pounds heavier.
So when you said endomorph, you weren't lying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I looked at it like, endomorph, I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't seem like a shot putter.
Right.
You know.
Farm strong. So I was born and raised in Wyoming.
Okay. Where in Wyoming?
A little town called Rock Springs, Wyoming.
Okay.
All dirt and sagebrush.
Okay. I could live in Wyoming.
Yeah.
I'd be okay in Wyoming.
Yeah, I miss those mountains. One day I'll get back there. But so gained and lost the same 130 pounds, right? I probably lost it all at 2 points in my life, and then ended up gaining it all back.
Oh, wow.
As well as over the time, I accumulated 4 autoimmune diseases and type 2 diabetes by the time I was 17. Meanwhile, I had been on diets back in the early 90s. Fen was a really big deal. So my phentermine, people, your listeners might know, if they're dieting culture people, they will know what fen is. So it's very similar to probably the Ozempic craze that's happening right now. Suppression and to activate energy. So that it was a duality. It was phentermine and phentermine, kind of a
Gotcha.
Together there.
Hence the fen.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Getting into my mom's Dexatrim, and then later in life, the ephedrine craze. I don't know if you remember that, like the fat burners and things like that, because it was just this tumultuous, noisy relationship with food that kept me like, I can't trust myself. This is my greatest pain, my greatest struggle, my focus for my whole life. So I actually went into nursing prior to any of this. Okay. And as I started working with people, I wanted to help people. Yeah. But then I was like, I can't even help myself. So here I am restricting and binging and restricting and binging. And I know what to do, what not to do, but why can't I do it? Yeah. Right. So then that spirals into shame and embarrassment and self-loathing and just really igniting this battle with self. And so then it becomes spiritual, it becomes mental, it becomes the way we show up in the world. Yeah. When really we just think we need a diet and we need more self-discipline. Yeah. When really that's not the case. So because this has been my journey, there's a trust that I have found that women have with someone like me who isn't like, oh, I just really love nutrition and I just really, which is great. There's a lot of people like that and there's nothing against them, but it was me too. Yeah. So it was me too in the car in the McDonald's parking lot, downing a McFlurry before I got home. Right? Because I was so embarrassed or ashamed of this relationship that I had with food. And so being able to relate to my women that I am somebody that is on the other side of victory when they're in this place of being the victim of this relationship with food, body, self. Yeah. So those are the people that I tend to attract. And that's why women will even wait for me. I have quite a waiting list because there is that safety. There's that understanding. There's that resonation together. Yeah. Holy cow. What is, and maybe this is too, I'm assuming you're very personal with your approach with each person that comes your way. Is that a fair statement? Absolutely. Yeah. What if you were to generalize for a podcast? Yeah. Is there, I'm just thinking, hey, we're the 40 somethings in our gym, the 50 somethings in our gym, where our bodies aren't working as well as what they were 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. 42 is when I started to notice it. That was, like, what's going on? Why am I waking up so tired? Like what I used to, it's not a problem, I guess. And I guess I'm aiming more towards women with this question. So like in the way of the typical female, mother, wife, prioritizes everyone before herself. The job, the kids, running around. My wife will run around and it will be like 2:00 in the afternoon. She's like, I don't think I've eaten anything today. Yeah. I'm like, you haven't eaten? Like, what are you? so common.
You've walked by the refrigerator 14 times. Like, what do you mean? We're right here. Like, or similar thing. She'll do the same thing at school. She'll take some food to go or something like that. And but like, she'll have kids come in and, work with her during lunch. And next thing you know, it's that 30-minute lunch period goes like that. And, and so she's kind of the other side of it where anyway, just when you see women prioritizing everything but themselves, they have this maybe not so, I didn't mean to throw my wife under the bus. She's fine. But like where they don't prioritize themselves with sleep or their exercise or just their alone time, mental time, space. Where do you start? And then they're, eating a McFlurry, by themselves in a parking lot. Where do you start with them? Like, what's step A?
Yeah. Yeah. So
was that way too general?
No,
I'm sorry. That took me a long time to get to.
That's okay. I'm with you. I'm with you. I mean, it's a very broad conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, and I mentioned this to you earlier, is how we do food is how we do life.
Yeah.
And so if we're living in a chaotic state with food, we're normally in a chaotic state with our lives. Right. And so
I can totally relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. And so every restriction will be followed up by an equal binge. It's one of the laws of the universe. Yeah. So if there's a restriction, let's just use your wife as an example. We can say that it's somebody else, not your wife. Yeah. It's anybody, right? Like, no. It can be a thin person. It can be an obese person. There is no size of person that I work with, right? Because you could have a very thin person that has a very disordered and dysregulated relationship with food, where they're beating themselves up. They're like, I need more self-discipline. I need, the shame, all of that. Let alone the symptoms, the exhaustion, the hormonal disarray, right? The gut health, like these symptoms start to crop up and we say, okay, first of all, we need radical awareness. And one thing we must practice if we're going to get to that point is awareness without judgment, right? I'm not going to judge myself. I'm just going to be aware. I'm just going to give myself awareness. Yeah. And so in my program or in the work that I do, first of all, we have to unlearn a lot of the bro science, a lot of the diet culture that we're inundated with the snippets of like, oh, you need more protein. We're such a protein-aholic country right now that it's not just more protein. It's not just more sleep, but it's why am I not getting sleep, right? Why am I craving at 10 p.m. after the kids go to bed? Why do I just want to eat the entire house, right? It's that pendulum that's swinging constantly from restrict to over, to under, to over. And really what it is about finding that alignment, right? So when we say, okay, what is the life that I desire? What is the life that I desire from a health standpoint? Right? So we can say that life is higher self. That's my higher self. That's my better self. That's my God intended self that God intended for me to live. Right? And so are the choices that I'm making, whether it's nourishment or it's sleep, hygiene, or it's, even kindness to self, grounding, prayer, meditation, are these choices, these decisions that I'm making in alignment with her, this higher self? Is this in alignment to bring me to that life that I desire? So for the person that doesn't eat all day, right, which is many, many of my people, it feels diet culture. It can feel like a little win. Like, okay, I ate nothing today. My brain is firing like crazy. Then the end of the day comes. Finally, I'm integrated with myself. I am famished. I am so hungry, but you're at the point now where the ghrelin is so high. All of the hormonal responses are happening. And so your body naturally goes to the highest potency of types of food, right? That's where fast food, processed food comes into play, because our bodies are depleted. They want to get refilled. And so there's always a question to ask. Instead of just saying, I need more self-discipline. I need to get my act together. I need to get back on the ship or whatever it is, right? I need to do this multi-level marketing company because they'll tell me what to do. where we're not being taught how to trust ourselves. We're not being taught how to listen to ourselves, because here's spoiler alert. We were never intended to have to figure out when and how to eat. Look at our Paleolithic times, right? They weren't sitting around saying, how many macros do I need? And, oh, this food's good and this food's bad.
Yeah.
Right? Putting all of this emotion to food.
Yep.
I've been good, so I'm a good girl because I ate good. I've been bad. Oh, I've been so bad.
Yeah.
I need to go punish myself. Anyway, I'm going off on a rabbit trail here.
Yeah.
But so we have to unlearn. First of all, we have to unlearn, have radical awareness and radical ownership, right? And the unlearning takes a lot longer than the relearning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it amazing how people get in habits of things. My mom taught first grade for 34 years, however long one teaches first grade for. And literally, I'm pretty sure if you take 34 years times 180 days of school, times each other, whatever number you get, that's how many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches she had during her professional career, because she had the same peanut butter and jelly sandwich with her same apple with her, I don't know if there's a third thing there, maybe a yogurt, maybe not, who knows. But like that PB&J was like standard because like, I mean, she was born in 1950. Yeah. Her parents were born in the Great Depression. Like, you know, you were lucky to get bread, and you got bread with peanut butter. Oh my gosh. Like,
yeah.
And so that, I mean, there's your habit right there. I'm not saying PB&J is bad. I'm just saying that, you know, to this day, she's 75. She still enjoys a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich at noon. But it's if she needed to, I'm not saying she does, but if she needed to unlearn that, that'd be a rough thing to unlearn. So I could totally see it taking longer to unlearn than to, you know, learn the new things. I think it's amazing, and I'm going to mess this up because you just said it beautifully, but it was like 4 minutes ago. So now my mind is somewhere else. But in the way of, oh my gosh, what did you say? Oh, But finding the underlying reason for why blank is happening. Yeah. I don't remember how you said it. It was really, really good. Because most people don't dig that far. That, you know, even a doctor will say, "Oh, this is going on," blah 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 blah. But they never flip the page to go, why is this going on? It's, you know, often, hey, here's the drug, or B's, stop eating that, or whatever it is. And the answer is probably C. Hey, well, why is this even going on to begin with? Yeah. And I would think that'd be a hard doesn't even do the justice, insanely challenging thing to find out with most people, in the way of like, why this is happening. Yeah. Is that easy for you to identify at this point in your career, or is it?
Absolutely.
It is. Okay.
I mean, you do this for this long. I mean, we're all human, and there's synergistic patterns in all of us. And what I love about when we start talking about relationship with food, I think no matter where somebody is, even if they're very black and white, like just eat the thing, there is that thread of commonality that we have with food, because we are emotional beings. Yeah. Right. So, being able to have those conversations, that's why the work that I do is depthful, right? And that's why the work that I do is not for everyone. There's the people that they're like, I don't really care. I just want the quick fix, or I just want the diet. Yeah. But here's the problem with that. I have not lost 130 pounds sustainably by doing a diet. Right. And everybody's shifting the verbiage right now. Like, oh, it's a lifestyle. Well, no, it's still a diet, because you're still referring to food as good and bad. You're still having cheat day, which, by the way, what even is a cheat day? Who are we cheating on? Right. Like, there's so much emotion around this topic of food. Right. So when we're literally going into those conversations, being able to open up the platform and say, okay, with curiosity, what might intuitively do I know that I'm doing? What is my level up? Yeah. Because ultimately we know. So here's something fun. We are in more of a distracted culture than we've ever been in, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. So we are so distracted. But what was distraction? So where did the word distract come from? Do you have any idea?
I do not.
So medieval times, there was a torture protocol called distraction. And they would literally cut the person from the head to the pelvis and around the center, and then tie one limb, foot, arm on a horse. And they would smack the horse, and the horses would literally distract the person. Right?
Seems like a bad way to go, man.
Yeah. So think of us from a conscious level.
Yeah.
Right? We wake up in the morning already distracted.
Yeah.
We eat distracted.
Mm-hmm.
We think about we don't even really think about food in a grounded, put together way. So so really some of the first steps in this work is coming back home, coming back to center with self. Mm. What's going on inside of me? All I know in this moment is that I want to run through a drive-through, or that I need whatever. I need a big bowl of pasta. That's all I know, because that's the symptom. Yeah. What's underneath there? Mm. Because there's an emotional symptom, or there's an emotional piece, and then there's a physical piece. Mm. Right? So the food therapist in me gets to draw out the emotional, right? What's the trigger? What keeps taking me down this path? Yeah. And then there's the integrative nutrition, which is there's a deficiency somewhere within me that is making this craving impossible. Yeah. Right? So we've got the emotional plus the physical, we've got combustion. Yeah. And I did the thing, and now I'm mad, and now I've got to go pay for it or whatever. Yeah. Right? So do you see how that works together? Yeah, very much so. So I always like, podcast wise, when if I'm listening to something, if I'm able to get something like something specifically tangible. Yeah. So do you mind talking about yourself with this whole thing? So what, in the way of, if we start with young you, what, if you dig deep, what was, I don't even know what was the cause? Yeah. To start, to get you to 200 and I don't know, 70 pounds, 80 pounds. Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask? Is absolutely that okay? No, okay. This is and even I know, like, one of the things that I love to do is get deep, and so I know that I have to, like, be cautious to not get too deep. Okay. Yeah. With the common conversation. Yeah. Because I think it's truly amazing to be able to, like, you see people, I don't know, the Biggest Loser stuff, and how people and that was such a cool show back in the day. I remember my wife and I watching that, just because it was so inspirational, to watch these people get after it, and often, even when they left the show, they continued to do things, and they brought them back at the end of this, and they had continued to lose weight. Of course, if you saw them 1 or 2 or 3 years after that, right, they had gone back to where they were, and it was so sad. So for you to at a young age be at the weight that you were, to now, few years later, but almost 30 years later, you're, healthy, happy, and strong, and now helping people with this, like, that's pretty amazing. And I can see why you have a waiting list. So, yeah. So, obviously, anytime that we struggle with food or self, let's just say self. Let's not, because food, I know, is like this new kind of perception to bring all of this in. Really, it goes back to enoughness, right? Like wanting to be enough. That I just want to be loved. I want to be accepted. I want to be enough. And especially right now, when beauty culture is taking over. Yeah. Why? Because the diet and beauty industry are the #1 industries in the entire world. Yeah. The whole world, not just the United States. Yeah. So the more accessible we are to media, the more accessible we are to this, socialite world, the more the comparison kicks in. Okay. And so it dysregulates this whole relationship with food. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a part of it. Now, then we look at our food system, right? Yeah. That's why the nutrition space is so nuanced. Yeah. People are like, oh, well, I actually, I grew up eating that. Well, actually you didn't. No, you didn't. Because just this year alone, fun statistic, 177,000 new additives and preservatives have been approved by the FDA.
Oh, God.
177,000. So it's not the calories. It's not the macros.
Yeah.
It's the additives. It's the fake food-like food that we are literally addicted to.
Food like food. That was the best line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're right.
It's not even real food.
It's not real
food. Freaking food.
Oh.
Right? If it can sit on a shelf.
Yeah.
For how long? Like, come on. If the onion, if the, strawberries I picked from my garden are moldy in like 3 days, but yet they can sit on a store shelf. Like, and I'm not even talking about strawberries. Yeah. I don't even want to talk about real food. Mm-hmm. We were talking about the fake food.
Yeah.
Right. So when we go, 70 to 80% of the average person's intake is processed food.
Yeah.
So that's where people get so lost in the details, like so lost in like, oh, this much protein or this many macros. Why don't we just start seeing how much real food and only real food I eat?
Yeah.
Filling my plate with real food. And I guarantee you it's a lot harder than you think because we have slowly shifted into this processed food lifestyle, right? When people are like, oh, it's just so hard to buy groceries and to prep and cook. Well, yeah, it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be because we're not just supposed to have it accessible. Yeah. Right. So that has been a major life shift, right? And even perspective and awareness. Yeah. Say, am I intended, is this human body intended to consume this thing? And so a lot of times around my age, around your age, when people start getting the spare tire, they start, having fat deposits in different places. It's just this stuck spot. Well, welcome to aging. Yeah. That's a lie. Yeah. We were never intended to age that way. It's yet again a symptom of an overload in the body, right? So that's a whole nother rabbit trail we could go down. But that's why, when we're looking at, okay, how do we make this as simple as possible, right? We don't need a diet. We don't need a macro counter. We don't need a scale to measure our food. We just need to eat real food. Yeah. And it's amazing that when we do that, when we truly nourish our bodies the way that we were intended to nourish our bodies, things figure themselves out. Yeah. And as a side effect of that, as a side effect of nurturing and nourishing and loving this body with everything that I put in it, a symptom is the weight goes away. Mm-hmm. The diabetes starts to get regulated. Yeah. The autoimmune issues start to become manageable. And then we get to go into the fun things, right? Like the detoxification and the supplementation and the parasite work and the heavy metal, all of those fun things that people love biohacking. Yeah. They love cold plunging and doing the parasite cleanse. Well, what about the foundation? Yeah. Like, let's just focus the energy on the foundation. Yeah. And so what has made it sustainable for me is, number one, looking at, okay, what are the very things that are taking me down and making me feel powerless? Right? We cannot skip the conversation of food and weight without also having the conversation of relationship with self. Okay. Right? Self-love is not the McFlurry. Maybe that's the dopamine, right? In that moment, it's triggering that dopamine, that, woo, this was so good, right? But there's a crash afterwards of shame, guilt. I shouldn't have had that. I don't feel good, right? So when we come back to ourselves, because we've been distracted, we come back to ourselves and we give ourselves conscious permission to be curious. How do I feel right now? Let me just take a pause for a moment. How do I feel right now? I feel dysregulated. I feel anxiety. I feel anxious. I feel exhausted. Okay. Well, then that thing that I just put in my body's saying, that really hurt me. Yeah. Right. And when we put in the thing, we choose to have the smoothie instead of the egg McMuffin. Right. And we have energy and we're not craving. And that's your body saying, thank you for loving me. Yeah. Right. So we are literally at war with ourselves. We're taught to be at war with ourselves, like women, especially men too, though. Men aren't excluded from this conversation, right? Just because I don't work with men doesn't mean they're excluded, especially right now with diet and beauty culture. Yeah. And I think we deal with it in a different way, but yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. So, where was I going with that? What did I say before I said that? I know it was so good. Can I throw in just
I don't want to completely derail this.
Derail me.
So I've heard people say, and this is, so my kids are boys, 12 and 9, grandparents, even my wife, or even people when we talk about, whatever, this, that, or that thing, when it comes to food or blah, blah, blah. Oh, let's go down to Dairy House and get them a treat, oh, it's his first year. Let's get, whatever. There's always the picture of the 1-year-old, throwing cake all over their face and oh, it's a treat. This is a treat. After their flag football game, we're bringing treats and this is a treat. Oh, they can have that. But it's like, they reward them for, and I've never been like that personally. It's never been like, oh, I had a good workout, I'm going to treat myself to blankety blank. Like I've never processed things like that. I don't know.
You're blessed then.
Well, and
that's a result of beauty. That's a result of diet culture.
Well,
right.
Let's be clear. Sometimes, like during my triathlon days, like I remember going out for a 100-mile bike ride. Again, I was 24, coming back and being so sodium deprived that I found a bag of ruffled potato chips, and not the little bag, but the big bag.
Sure.
I'm like, wow, these are really good. And again, I was 24.
Deficiency.
And all of a sudden, exactly.
So you're deficient.
And 20 minutes later, I'm like, did I eat the whole bag? Like,
yeah, you
sweet
did.
goodness. But I felt amazing because I was 24.
Yeah.
But like, do you have any, is there an issue with like this, like, I'm going to treat myself. I did this. I'm going to treat, I did this. To treat myself with food. Is that a red flag?
Well, I think, first of all, to give ourselves permission to treat ourselves, right? But what are you treating yourself with? Are you treating with something that's going to...
Yes. No. Bad food. Right. Typically bad food.
Okay. So you're treating yourself, but to me, right? That's not self-love. See, that's not self-kindness.
I totally agree with you.
Right? Yeah. Would you, if you knew something was going to hurt one of your children, right? And they were going to be exhausted or their stomach, like their bowel movements would be all jacked up from it, you would be like, no, I love you so much. I'm not going to let you have the blank. Yeah. Right? But for some reason, when it comes to food and this diet mentality of, oh, I've been good, or I deserve it, or I get the cheat, I get the no guilt cheat meal. Meanwhile, it's wrecking me on the inside. Yeah. Right? So when we have to look at, how does this make me feel? Because, this is where I was going before. So
I knew I was going to bring it back.
Yes, you did. Good job.
Keep it focused.
Good job. So when we're so distracted, right? And we come back to ourselves and say, how do I feel when being able to pause and think, how do I feel after I eat that? So I'm thinking about the Dairy House, but how do I feel after the Dairy House? Okay, well, I'm ready to crash. Yeah. Like my eyes get mucusy or whatever, right? Yep. Or my energy starts to tank immediately. And let's just get home, get showered and get in bed, So in that moment, we get to say, okay, is that an empowering choice? Not because it was good or bad, right? But how it makes me feel. Yeah. And we have the wisdom and the knowledge that our children don't. So we get to help cultivate that, right? So bringing awareness into the children, like, my kids love Chick-fil-A fries. Yeah. So we go get the Chick-fil-A fries.
Who doesn't? Let's be clear.
Crack cocaine in there, I guess.
Going back to the
dopamine.
175,000 different.
Yeah. Right. And that's not listed on the ingredients.
It's not.
So one really cool thing with my 17-year-old is that, he will now make the conscious decision, I don't want that. Let's just go home. Well, why don't you want that? Well, because I know it's going to taint me and I'm going to get really tired and I want to go to this thing tonight. Right? Just to have the awareness and the permission to have the awareness of how does that make you feel? Yeah. Literally. Right? It's not, because we got to take the emotion away from it. Yeah. So if it's nostalgic, like the Dairy House, the event or whatever, that's another emotional piece, right? It's nostalgic. It's tradition. Yep. Okay. How can we make a new tradition that doesn't hurt us, but it loves us? Yeah. Right? And so, it's literally a progression to get there. You're not just going to it's not the new diet, right? It's the progression of the pause and saying, okay, what is something that we could do in replacement of that maybe won't hurt us in the way that I know it will, because I've got the education, right? But I always say, education alone does not lead to transformation. Education plus personal revelation equals transformation.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great mathematical problem right there. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having that personal revelation, how can I ever expect more education to change my life?
Yeah.
I thought so. Right. As after I got out of nursing and I went into nutrition and then integrative holistic nutrition, I just need more education, right? Because then I can just shame myself. I know better. Well, it wasn't the personal revelation, right? The personal revelation is, oh my gosh, every time I'm frustrated in relationship with my spouse, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example here. I want to make pasta.
You've never been mad at your husband. I understand. Yeah.
Sure.
23 years of bliss.
23 years of pure raw bliss is a lie, right? That's a lie. But noticing a pattern, right? Like what if I'm frustrated or if I'm shoving my words down, I'm shoving my voice down, and then I crave this thing. And it's not really even so much the planned things. It's mostly the mindless things.
Yeah.
Standing in the pantry, right? Handful of this, handful of that. Nothing's sufficing. Nothing's really what I wanted. And then after that, you're like, okay, well, I'm full, but I never really even got what I wanted. So it must have been emotional.
Yeah.
Right? It was an emotional hunger. So all that to say, it brings us back to the pause and the ability to have the awareness. Yeah. So with our kids, with the nostalgia, with the, I'm never going to get this ever again. You know, like I had one woman one time, and she, I was teaching about the inflammatory effects of dairy and how dairy is the most mucus forming substance that we can consume on a real food level. Right. And she had chronic onset of arthritis. And I do a 9-day experiment. Just experiment for 9 days. Take it out of your life for 9 days and just see what happens, right? We're not saying it's never again. We're not saying that this has to be forever. For 9 days, take it out, see what happens. She just resisted doing it and resisted doing it and resisted doing it. Also, side note, dairy is one of the most addictive substances we consume because of the casomorphins, which emulate morphine, right? Casein. It addicts the baby cow. So it keeps bringing it baby cow back to the mama so it doesn't die. And we're eating the baby cow stuff. And so we want to go back to the mama or the dairy aisle, right? And we continue to consume it. So there was the addiction piece, but here was the bigger piece. She's like, well, when I go to France, I'm not going to say no to cheese and bread. And I'm like, okay, well, when are you going to France? She's like, oh, I don't know. One day I'm going to go. So there was this mental resistance, right? But when she took the 9 days, right? And isn't that how we
next week, I'm going to France next week.
Right. Like I can't do this. Because when I go to France, I'm not going to say no to the cheesecake and the cheese. Yeah. Well, you going to France anytime soon? Because we can run this experiment, right? She knew based on the education that it was going to make her feel better. Right. And so she actually ended up going through that experiment and she experienced like 80% less pain in her body over that course. And so that's the personal revelation I'm talking about. Yeah. Right. But not until we give ourselves space to listen unbiasedly to the education and then bringing it into personal revelation. Yeah. Then the change is a natural organic outcome. So also with our children, right? Help them gain personal revelation. Yeah. Okay. You feel like garbage after the birthday party because you had the cake and the pop and the candy, right? How do you feel right now? Does that feel good? Not shame, not shaming them, right? I know you don't feel good. Maybe it was the candy, maybe it was the cake, right? But because of that addiction piece, right? But that's why we get to help them in those decisions. Yeah.
I've seen my oldest, because he's like his mother, is very reflective like that. And like, he'll know, like I do think it affects him too. Like more than my youngest, who is much more like me and just
distracted,
impulsive.
That's a big part of it too.
Yeah. I just do it. Like he doesn't look before he leaps. He's just a leaper. And never looks. He basically leaps blindfolded all the time is how he's gotten through life. but no, it's interesting to see the 12-year-old actually reflect on like, yeah, you know, Dad, I ate too much of the blankety blank, and it'll turn their poop green, or, you know, whatever, you know, and
bind them up, or, you know, all kinds of things. And then later in life, it's so much more.
Yes.
Like that's at a young age. Those are the symptoms at a young age. But when we go further in life, and that's when we start to accrue autoimmune issues or this weird thing, or these food allergies and sensitivities. But remember, how we do food is how we do life, right? So if I do life impulsively and mindlessly, I'm probably doing food the same way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that impulsive behavior.
Yeah.
And that was me, right? Mindless was me. That was my, you know, it was like this escapism.
Yeah.
Food was an escape. Food was a numbing. Food was this is me time, right? I give and give and give to the world, like speaking to the mom, speaking to the business owner, right? Give and give and give. What is one thing that I can do for me? Well, right now in this moment, this thing that I'm eating feels like nurture.
Yeah.
But then if I feel like garbage, it's a counterfeit. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So what, so with that, if, oh gosh, you said so many good things right there. If somebody, what did you do in your situation? You said at the age of 17, you weighed 280. How did you realize, or maybe you didn't know at that point? Was it a later point in time that we made? When did you identify that, hey, this is like the complete underlying cause of what's going on?
Yeah.
And that's where we
made the turn. Yeah. So I was already a nutritionist. Okay. And I'm teaching people about what to eat and why to eat it.
How old are you at this time?
Probably 28.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little later. And so I actually, as a nutritionist, I worked with people that wanted to do bodybuilding competitions. I worked with some wrestlers. Like I didn't really niche down in the nutrition world. I worked with people that just mostly wanted to lose weight because that's what I had done. And now meanwhile, I had lost weight, probably, I don't know specifically numbers, but probably about 80 pounds, right? So, whereas now I'm sitting at like 130 less. And I thought that was it. Like I'm here. Like this is my body weight set point. Like this is my body type. And, I'm going to learn to accept it, because that's some of the work that we do too, right? Is radical acceptance, so that we can learn to nurture and listen to our bodies. And so that's where I thought that I was. And I started to see the same patterns in the people that I was working with that I also had in myself behind the scenes, right? Like how shameful, how imposter am I if I'm teaching to eat this way, but yet on Sunday night, after I've done all this food prep, I just unleash, right? Like, so there was this duality that was taking place, and the diet mindset, the restriction, the binging, the erratic behavior with food, it scared me so much that at any moment the shoe would drop and I would lose my discipline. I would lose the ability to control myself with food. Yeah. And so diet pills. Okay, well now what are you going to do without the diet pills? Right? Whether it's the new Ozempic or the new, different MLM companies. What's the plan after? And my internal dialogue was, well, let me get the weight off first and then I'll figure it out. Right? Because having this weight on my body is so excruciating, and it's hard to walk around in this world with this weight on my body. This is not my authentic me. I don't feel this way on the inside. Let me just get the weight off and then we'll worry about it. Yeah. Okay. Flash forward, I developed autoimmune issues, right? First, there was also another piece, right? It was always very focused on vanity. How much weight, what size. And that's why even now I have people sign a contract that you're not going to weigh yourself through this process with me. Wow. Absolutely.
No kidding.
Why am I going to give a piece of metal something to tell me if I am successful or not in my relationship with food.
That's fantastic.
Right?
Holy cow.
So no measurement, because we have to be taught how to be intuitive again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I feel? Do I feel like I'm loving myself? Or do I feel like I'm like the scale? Because the scale can go either way, right? It can either give you permission to do the things that hurt you, or it can restrict you from doing the things that are actually nourishing to you. Yeah. Right. And when we come from dieting, that's a whole like undoing of a metabolic equilibrium balance. Yeah. Right. So, so with the scale, where was I going with the scale?
I don't know. I just love the thought.
Because you were so amazed about not doing the scale.
So many people like base it around the, hey, we're going to do this challenge and you're going to weigh yourself, at 5 a.m. every Monday or, track it daily, or we're going to take before pictures and after pictures, and we're going to take, process pictures, and we're going to do that. Not only the weight, but like the in-body scan and drive that piece. And, so we figure out our our body fat percentage and blah, 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 blah. But to take it, and this is where I really like it. Like, hey, we're just, that shouldn't have a whole lot to do with it. Like, it should be to teach yourself how to, what word did you use?
Trust, intuition.
There we go. To have that intuition to be like, hey, what I'm doing is working, and because I feel this way. And, at the end of the day, it should not be this complete vanity thing. Which I think people just get wrapped up in, because they sit down and they open up their phone and it's like, skinny, good looking person, skinny, good looking person, skinny, good looking person. And it's like, not me, not me, not me, and then, you throw in stress of the world, and, all of a sudden my wife has a crummy day at school, and, she pops off at me, and you could see how things just start to unravel, within.
And then we're saying, how do you feel today? I feel fat. Well, fat's not a feeling. There's something underneath the I feel fat. Yeah. Right? Like there's emotions under the I feel fat. Yeah. And so, that the vanity piece, right? The vanity is, what is your goal? My goal is to lose weight. Okay. Why do you want to lose weight? What is telling you that you need to lose weight? Right? So the vanity has to take a pause if we're ever going to heal and shift into vitality. Yeah. And what helped me was I come to find out, farm girl strong. I ended up being strong, and I ended up getting into powerlifting. And for the first time in my life, I was about the number on the squat rack versus the number on the scale for the first time in my life. And all of a sudden, it wasn't so much about my size, but it was now about my performance. So I'm so thankful for even that short season that I had, that I did that, because now it was about the strength to lift the bar up. Yeah. For me, it was symbolic to the weight of the world. Like, I have the strength to lift this up. Yeah. And being able to shift into the performance aspect. But then after that, right? Like, how do I feel? And for me, powerlifting ended up hurting me. My joints, it wasn't the best for vitality. Yeah. I felt great in the gym. Horrible outside the gym. Okay. Like, I didn't have the energy. Yeah. Meanwhile, I had some underlying autoimmune issues that I didn't know about. Nobody knew about, because all my blood work was in with the normal range. Did you have kids at this time? Well, that's not helping either. Right. And training, all of that. But the point of sharing that was that shift from vanity to vitality. How do I want to feel? Not what do I want to look like? How do I want to feel? Do I want to feel vibrant? Do I want to feel clear and grounded? Yeah. Right? Like, I did not, if you go back and look at me in that time, I did not look like health, but I was macro counting and cutting to make weight for this certain competition. And I'm like, this isn't healthy. Yeah. Right. So when you're referring to, and I know you kind of speak more to the athlete, right? The often, athlete. Yeah. So is there a value for that tool in the athletic world? Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But for the average person, there's no value in knowing that. Yeah. I couldn't tell you right now how much I weigh. I have no idea. That's why I'm like, I'm about 100. I don't know. Right. all I know is, okay, when my sleep is good and I have energy and clarity and I can put my words together and I can remember things, right? And I feel like I'm just running on all cylinders. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Right. And a symptom of that is I don't have the extra weight.
Yeah. It's funny because I think 99% of my wife's arguments and I over the last 15 years have been tied to the gym or tied to the money that's typically tied around the gym. And those stressful times, whether they be late nights here at the gym or, whatever it is, leads me to the dead opposite of everything that you just described there. Leads me to like the brain fog stuff and the not sleeping well. And to ask the question, how are you feeling versus what you weigh, like that, nobody asks that question. How are you feeling? What? That's such an interesting and I think important way for people to look to see if what you're doing is working. Because if you feel good, what you're doing is probably working.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel good, you're hanging on, you're using mental toughness, you're using your grit, your determination, your whatever it is to, I don't know, I'm thinking standard diets. Hey, I'm not eating this. I'm only eating this.
Right.
I can only eat this much. I have to have this done. Oh, intermittent fasting. I can't eat anything until this time. And and the restriction. And at some point it probably wears off. And at some point you're eating a McFlurry, by yourself in your car and yada, yada, yada. So that feeling piece, I think is such that's 1,000 times more important than whatever that scale says, whatever that piece of metal says. And
well,
that's really good.
And that's why it's got to be a progression, right?
Yeah.
Like it has to be permission for everything, right? If I want the McFlurry right now, have the McFlurry without guilt and shame. Because here's the thing with guilt and shame. We're seeking pleasure and joy from the McFlurry, right? But if we have guilt and shame at the same time, it's fight or flight and rest and digest cannot happen at the same time. The brain cannot support both.
Yeah.
So either I'm enjoying it or I feel guilty about it. Can't be both. Guilty pleasure can't happen.
Yeah.
That's impossible in the psychology of our brain. So if one of the practices is learning, if I'm going to eat it, I'm not going to allow myself to eat it if there's any guilt tied to it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to intentionally eat it with pleasure and enjoyment.
Yeah.
And that's part of the practice. Like I've got an exercise that I use called, being bad. Right. And being bad is allowing yourself, what is it that I want? What's the thing that makes me feel bad? I remember one woman, she was like, Cheetos are the thing. I was like, okay, I want you to buy a bag of Cheetos and bring them into your house. And she's like, what? Like that goes against everything that any nutritionist has ever taught me. Like you do not buy it. You do not do anything with it. Right. And then teaching, how do I consume this with awareness? Just because this is a trigger food, she couldn't eat the food without eating the entire bag. So, I cannot have those in my house. The Thin Mint, I can't eat just one Thin Mint. It's got to be the sleeve. Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. So let's take a pause. Because you're already eating it with this guilt. Like I shouldn't be eating this. I shouldn't be eating this. But yet you are, right? No. When really you want the pleasure and the enjoyment. So let's give permission to sit down with the Cheetos at the table without distraction and eat the Cheetos. How do they taste? What do you like about them? How does your mouth feel? I like the crunch. Okay. I noticed that I ate the Cheeto. The taste dissipated right away. It was really hard to just not shove them in my mouth. It was really hard to just eat one at a time, right? I wanted to get on my phone and scroll while I'm eating these Cheetos. Yeah. Right? Oh my gosh, I'm noticing these really don't taste as good as I thought they did. The first two tasted great, but then after the first two, they started to lose their taste. And now I've got this weird film in my mouth and now I feel the coating down my throat, right? Yeah. 15 minutes later, I'm a little bloated. Yeah. Right? So it's giving ourselves that space. And I'm just giving an example, right? Yeah. To open up everything. Give yourself permission to have it all. And then we can start to learn what is good for me. Yeah. What is my body like and what does my body not like? but we have to become totally neutral because we're going from this place of negativity. We can't just swing into positivity. We got to go into this place called neutrality.
Yeah.
How do we be neutral with food?
Yeah.
And when you're coming from a diet cycle and a diet lifestyle and a diet culture, neutrality with food is like foreign language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? How do we just be neutral?
It's got to be polar. You got to love it or hate it.
Yeah.
Can't be in the middle.
Good or bad.
Like politics.
Yep. Oh gosh, that's a different topic. So food, if I eat the good food, I'm a good girl. Ooh, but I want the bad food. So I eat the bad food. So I'm bad. Right? What about if I just eat the food?
Yeah.
And I enjoy it without distraction? Right? I had a professor in college and he was Indian. I'm going to jack up this accent, but I'm going to try it anyway. But he would say, the problem with America is you eat and you do. You eat and you drive. You eat and you read. You eat and you watch. He said, when you eat, you eat. That's it. There's a good first step.
Yeah.
Try eating and just eating without working, without being on your phone, without watching anything, without reading anything. You're going to notice a lot of stuff around the food. Right? So that's that mindfulness. That's that coming back to center. Because this food that's out here, I'm about to put it in my body. I am the giver and the receiver of everything that goes in my body. Nobody is shoving it in my mouth. Nobody's making me. I am the giver and the receiver of everything that goes into my body. Talk about some radical ownership.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this moment because this thing that's out here is now in here and now it's a part of me. Right? So that pause to just be like, okay, I'm not saying I can't have the McFlurry. I'm saying if I have the McFlurry, I'm going to go into McDonald's. I'm going to sit in the corner booth, not on my phone, and enjoy the McFlurry. And I guarantee about halfway through, you're going to lose interest. You're going to be bored. You're going to be like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, why? I'm getting on my phone. Right? So I'm just throwing out these examples as like perspective shifts when it comes to food.
Yeah.
Because we make it so complicated. It was never meant to be this complicated. And that's why I think the very first reel you ever commented on was like this conversation about food. Fruit is high in sugar. Don't eat sugar, right? Vegan is the most optimal and healthy way, but no, it's not, right? Like you need more protein. You need to add salt to your water, but not too much sodium, right? Because this is where we just get so confused, and confusion leads to overwhelm, which leads to stagnation.
Yeah.
Right? Just stay stuck. Stay in my habit. I'm just going to keep having my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Yeah. Because it's easy. And I know that. Right?
Yeah. Holy cow.
So
I was just listening. Sorry. I think, yeah. The idea of, I mean, this goes back. I thought of like family dinners and stuff like that when you're going off on like, hey, you put the technology away and just sit there and eat and how busy we all are. And I know we're guilty of it. You know, kids will have sports practice of whatever, and we get home and it's 7:30 at night. And, you know, we during the school year, we try to get the kids in bed a little after 8 if we can. Summer's a little different because the sun's still out. But like, you know, they come and they're wearing their sports stuff and we throw food at them and get in the shower and get to bed, you know, and then, you know, they're sitting, but we're standing, and it's, you know, running ththrough the schedule for the next day. And, you know, people just get busy with it. And again, not excuses and stuff, but the idea of like, hey, you can have this McFlurry and it won't kill you. But you eat it, you know, without technology and just a bite at a time. And I can totally see it getting boring and, you know,
well, and with that, you're probably going to find, oh, it didn't make me feel that great. Yeah. Right. It made me feel kind of spacey. I felt kind of out of it after I ate that. So then the next time that you have that craving, you get to now have that, you know, take that download with you. Like, is that how I want to feel? You know, when it comes to the family dinners and the food, around a crunch time, I often ask people, you know, if you don't have 15 minutes to eat, if you can't take 15 minutes to stop work and to eat, then you're probably not that hungry in reality.
Ooh.
Right? Because if you're absolutely hungry, you're going to stop and you're not going to have to accomplish 15 things while you're consuming. Because remember, if we want to work on our digestion, we cannot be in fight or flight while we want our body to digest. Yeah. We weren't made that way. Yeah. Right? You even go back to ancient times, right? I think of, let's use, I don't know, the times where Jesus was there and he was a carpenter, right? He's building a table. Is he out there munching on naan bread while he's building a table? No, they stop. Yeah. They pause. They shut down the work. They go wash their feet. They bless the food, right? They're blessing. They're like taking a moment, center, pause, rest and digest, and now we consume. Yeah. Right? So when we look at the natural rhythms of the body, and then we're in an epidemic of gut issues and bowel issues and digestion issues, everybody's on a, anti-acid medication, all of this stuff. Yeah. How much would go away if we just incorporated this one practice? Yeah. Right? When's the last time you sat down at the table and you felt the chair underneath your legs, the feet under your floor, or the floor under your feet, the breath in your chest, and took a breath, right? And I think that's where praying for our food is so valuable, right? It's the pause. It's the connection. I'm connecting to this thing that I'm about to consume. I'm giving gratitude, right? My body relaxes. I'm ready now to engage.
So where my mind just went there is that our friend Allie Troya has come here numerous times and worked with our volleyball club on some recovery days in which to, work in some stretching stuff, but then also just kind of down regulating because these kids go 1,000 miles an hour. And what you just said there, hey, feel your feet on the floor, feel your, if they're laying down, hey, feel your shoulders on the floor, feel the breath in your, and she just takes them through this. And it is funny how within 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, I'll be watching them, like these kids will start yawning because they never take the time in which to down regulate. And now their body is just that little bit. And it's, the car is finally starting to idle just a little bit. And not only does it like idling, it wants to totally shut off because it's being run, 65 miles an hour all the time. And so, again, I don't care if you're a young athlete or an adult, we run around like chickens with our head cut off way too often. And then when we go to, eat, that it's or option B, a little prayer before, calm down before, have a nice conversation, and eat like a normal human. Sorry, that phrase doesn't even work anymore. Eat like normal humans did 40 years ago.
Basic.
And hey, we enjoy the meal. We're done. We clean it up. Yeah. We took at least that 15 minutes, and now we go back to doing whatever it is that we
now we jump in the shower and get ready for the day. Yeah. Right. And that's the thing, like prayer is centering, it's grounding, and it could just be, a pause prayer. And that's, one of the tattoos on this arm is Selah, which it's all scattered throughout the book of Proverbs, or through the Psalms, to pause, take a pause, take a breath. Because I was so impulsive, right? Impulsivity.
You had to get a tattoo of it to remind yourself.
Tattoo on this arm. It's the only one on this whole arm because that's just take a breath. Yeah. Like, when's the last time that you intentionally just took a breath? And if we do that before we the reason why I love food psychology is because when we have it stack with food, right? We can change our lives with our relationship with food. Yeah. Because I'm going to eat every day, probably several times a day. Yeah. So if that means that several times a day, I'm pausing, I'm taking a breath, I'm grounding, I'm centering myself, and it doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It can be 30 seconds. Yeah. Right? If I'm doing that throughout the day, then all of a sudden I start to feel my feelings. I start to feel more grounded instead of, spinning out of control with anxiety or overwhelm or like this, the other side is the depression or like, what's the point of life? Or, it brings in an aspect of health that is not being taught. It's not being taught. Yeah. And why aren't we having this conversation in the wellness community? Right? Like this is root cause stuff. Yeah. We're continually talking about like this supplement and biohacking this and this many macros. Like that's all fun for down there. Yeah. Once we got this foundation regulated and in rhythm. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Because most people don't have step one figured out.
Right. And that's why this work is so like, well, wait, what do you do? Yeah. Oh, that's a thing. right? Like, I've never heard of that.
Tell me your title again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of, kind of the picture of why this even matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Holy cow. So, Chris, here's my thought. One, we need to do more of these podcasts because I feel like we've just touched the tip of everything that's going on here. Because I've had, I don't know, this is podcast 100 and whatever, and nobody's ever come at it with like, people give it the, the words toward, oh yeah, relationship with food and blah, 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 but never like undercut into, hey, well, why is this happening? What is, I don't know, just, you think about this in a way that I've never had. I wasn't completely prepared for this podcast, to be honest with you. I thought I don't know, you surprised me in a fantastic way. Really, when you walked in the building today. So just so that we don't make this a 7-hour podcast,
right.
I'm serious about doing another one. So what do you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
Gosh, I never come in with expectation.
I appreciate that. No expectations.
Yeah, no, I just am always up for the conversation. I think you did. I think, if there could be a takeaway, it would be permission to be curious. That maybe there's more to this weight and this health thing than just fitness and calories. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so much more to the equation. Yeah.
I find it interesting that I see a lot of the, like, I don't know, I have friends within this fitness space, a lot of friends within this fitness space, and then friends / even acquaintances within this fitness space. And it's so interesting to see that the people who have, and these are people I'm a little jealous of because I'm very proud of what we've built here at Oak.
Oh, yeah.
But there are many times that it stresses the bejesus out of me. And, I'm no different than anyone where, I'll pack my lunch, but it will sit there because I'm doing 5,000 other things, and I will get home at night and, a cream cheese bagel sounds fantastic to me. Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't do well with gluten, which
I don't think anybody does.
Not at our age.
No. Yeah.
No more.
Yeah.
But, but you get to that point where like, oh God, I don't even care what I eat right now because, right. I dealt with this today and this today and this today and this today, this day. And now it's 9:45. I'm finally getting home and I barely saw my wife today and I saw my kids for like 2 seconds and and we're going to get home and, and we're not immune to, any of that. And so to be able to back off that curious piece is very good work. But to be able to back off and be like, hey, what is the underlying cause? And then I can identify the underlying cause. It's typically this gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I think that's fantastic. I think it's, if more people thought about nutrition, food, the way you are versus the calories in, calories out, oh, hey, you ate bad, you better go work out. Or, hey, I ate good, I'm okay. Or, oh no, I have to work out every day because this is my plan. Or, oh, I did eat bad, so now I have to work out extra hard. Yeah. I'm going to do a double workout. I'm going to do more. If 3 sets is good, 5 sets is better, right? Hey, if 5 rounds is good, 7 rounds is better. And just more and more and more and more. And then you see people we talked about this briefly before we hit record, but, adrenal issues and,
cortisol.
We get a little bit older and body parts don't work as well as they used to. And now there's shoulder pain and back pain and knee pain and hip pain and,
and that's your body speaking to you.
Yeah.
Right. So,
hey, dummy, stop doing that.
Well, and we're always looking to blame something when something's wrong. We're always looking to blame. And in the example that you gave, like I'm going to blame the gym. Yeah. And it's true. It's very valid. This gym is a lot. You are running a very big thing here, but one thing that we can in the radical ownership is say, okay, if my health really matters and if my vitality really matters, then that means I'm going to carve out 30-minute lunch break in my schedule and have the discipline to sit there. Yeah. And that means I'm on lunch, friends, doors locked, or go outside, right? Because this is that wellness piece that we're not giving honor to. Right. So the pendulum is swinging, right? Like you go all day, you're not listening to yourself. You're not internal. You're not nourishing yourself. You're not listening to the cues of your body. Your body is cueing you at points. You're hungry, right? You're thirsty. You think about hunger, like how we put off hunger. Do we put off having to go to the bathroom? If we got to run to the potty, we go to the potty.
We have to pause the podcast. We pause.
Right. We go do that. But when it comes to food, we just put it off and put it off and put it off. Well, the body is cueing you because it's in need of something, right? Whether it's energy or nutrients or what have you, right? Yeah. So you put it off all day long. Remember what I said at the beginning, every restriction will be followed up by an equal binge. Yeah. Right. And binge has all kinds of different, you can frame binge however you want. Yeah. For me, it's anything that feels out of control. Right. So when I get to that point with food, I've skipped the meals. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, I don't even care. Yeah. I don't care if it's going to hurt me. I don't care if it's going to heal me. I just want to eat. Yep. Right. That's a result of the daytime restriction. Yeah. So you're in your own daytime diet cycle. Yep. Right. So instead of it being like this restrictive 6-week thing, and then I binge for a week and then I get back on the 6-week thing, now it's within 24 hours. Right. I didn't intend to restrict, but that's where the pattern change has to happen to say, okay, I'm having radical awareness. This is my cycle. Yeah. What is one thing that I can do to shift the cycle? Right. And that's it. I sit down and I eat my meal that I brought from home and I eat it. Yeah. And then as soon as that meal is over, I open the door and I'm back at it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's where, if we're looking for something to blame, we can blame things that are very valid. I can blame my genetics. I can blame my autoimmune stuff. I can blame my schedule. I can blame my kid's schedule. Well, back to what a lot of the people you have on your podcast talk about is how bad do you want to feel good? Yeah. Right? Because if I want to feel good, it's going to take some effort. Yeah. Right? Comfort and change cannot happen at the same time. Right. So it's going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable to be like, I would love to cram in another meeting, but I've got an appointment and my appointment is with myself. Yeah. And that is to nourish myself because if I don't, there will be a repercussion. Right. Yeah. See how that works? Yeah, completely. It's not just, you just don't want it bad enough or do you want to lose the 20 pounds or do you not? Yeah. Well, I need to make time to have lunch. Yeah. Or I need to make time to go to bed earlier and get the screen out of my face. Right. Yeah. That's where the discipline is needed. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, I just think of our kind of hard charging area of things is, not wanting to, I don't know. We work as hard as we possibly can in order to best, and let's be clear, it's not money driven. I wish it were, but it's not. But it's for the betterment of our athletes and our members and stuff like that, to make sure that we're doing the best that we possibly can. Yeah. Because if at any point in time, I never want them coming up short. Yeah. Because Adam went home early, or something like that. That that guilt would be terrible. Where, let's be clear, a lot of it's on them. Most of it's on them. Holy cow, Krystal, we could go forever here. I know. We'll end it here. Yeah. And I want to speak into that. Just a little thing for you. Yeah. A little nugget for you to take home with you. Oh, fantastic. You want to do it while we're here? While we're or your call. Oh yeah. Or yeah. So I was just going to say that, there's never going to be a shortage of things to do. Never. There's never going to be a shortage. You're not wrong. Yeah. So when people are like, oh, I just need to wait until life slows down, friend, it's not. It's not. Yeah. So you have to look at everything that flows from you. Yeah. Right. You have to, the priority structure. Yeah. Right. The priority structure is that if I don't care for myself, I cannot care for all of these people that I love and this commitment that I've made.
Yeah.
Right. So in a roundabout way, you caring for you is you caring for them.
It is.
So that's a reframe, a little reframe.
That's really good. Well, and I think you could take that and put that to gosh darn near anybody. You could
absolutely
do that with mothers with their kids. You could do that with, you know, dads with their jobs. You could put that with dads with their kids, whether, you know, holy cow.
Job and kids.
Yes.
And housework and all the things.
Yes.
Right. Like if we don't prioritize in a way of structuring our life, right? And where do we start? We can start with food.
Yeah.
Right. That's something simple we can start with.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole big upheaval. But if we just start with food, I need to eat every day.
Yeah.
Right. We know how often we need to eat every day. Mm-hmm. So if I take those meal times, right? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, to take a moment, right? To invest, to nourish, to care for, right? And an amazing thing starts to happen and we experience more vitality. We feel more clarity. We feel more energy to give, right? It's that whole parable of the cup, right? Yeah. If you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You're depleted. Say maybe you binged the night, you didn't get home till 9:30. So you ate a huge bowl of cereal, right? You woke up feeling tired and sluggish because you didn't get the nutrition that you needed, right? Let alone the stress and all of that. So it's going to continue in this cycle that feels just hopeless until you burn out. And then you can't show up at the gym. You can't show up at your job. You can't show up as a healthy, thriving mother, wife, whatever, right? Yeah. Husband, dad. And you're just like, leave me alone. I need to just lay on the couch. Yeah. Well, if I had stopped that pendulum from shifting from all or nothing and gone into, okay, how can I give myself what I need, what I need, what I need? What is it that I need? And a lot of times when we crave things, instead of saying, what am I craving? We say, what is it? Or instead of saying, I want this food, ask ourselves, what am I craving? Yeah. Am I craving comfort, nourishment, grounding, peace, calming? Right? Yeah. So that's going to give you the idea of what I need more of throughout the day. Yeah. So it doesn't just slam me up at the end of the day. Yeah. So little shift. Yeah. Little shift. Yeah. Nurture, nourish. Start with that.
That's really good. I was trying to think of it. Nope, I got nothing.
So
thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, even though I'm not like your typical, you know.
It's just, well, again, I've looked at all the fitness things. I've looked at all the nutrition things. Like there's not a new thing that comes up where like, oh, I've never seen that until today. Like this, and it's frustrating that nobody's talking about the framing of this and just the nice, simple, basic things that, I don't know. The nice thing about eating is that you probably do it 3 times a day. And if you mess up breakfast, well, you still have lunch and dinner you can come through on, or, and to give yourself permission to mess up one of those and be okay with it, to know that, hey, there's another day coming and there's more food to be eaten and whatnot. So no, this is fun. We have to do this again. So we're going to, I really appreciate it. People want to find you and what you're doing and all the great things. Where in this wonderful world of social media do they go?
Oh man, I'm only really on 2. So I haven't brought in the others. So Instagram is probably where I'm most active, in stories and just kind of like real life behind the scenes stuff, since it's also still my journey, right? We never arrive. It's perpetual. So I do share a lot there. And then,
and that's at Life Nutrition.
At Life, LYFE. Yep. I had to, like, my name is Krystal with a K. Life had to have the Y.
Oh, there we go.
And I know in this local Rockford area, there's Life Dispensary, and so many people think that that's mine. It's not.
Not the same.
I'm not the dispensary. I'm the food therapist, the nutritionist. So LYFE Nutrition, and then also on Facebook, which there's quite a bit less engagement because it's a page. Yeah. But I also have a private group that you can be a part of too. If you're ready to have real conversations, that you're not ready to just be a watcher, you're ready to like have a safe space to share your frustration, your victories, your questions with a group of people that are like, yeah, me too. Yeah. Me too. You know what? You're not broken because me too. So then that gives me a space to be able to kind of speak to a smaller group that actually is like ready to show up with non-judgmental awareness.
Yeah.
And so you just request that, answer the few questions, and I'll let you in. I also have an online program coming soon called Body at War.
Okay. Body at War. At war. Jeez.
Yes.
Or I'm at war.
Body at War. Yes. Sorry, I said that fast.
Yeah.
Because really what this is about is dissolving this war that we're in so that we can live a life of freedom.
Okay.
We can live a life of freedom in our health, in our mindset, in our vitality. And so those are the offerings that I have right now.
Gotcha. So sorry, I'm going back to the Facebook group thing.
Yeah.
I have a list of people in my head that would love to be part of that. They go to your Facebook page and then they can find that group off your page.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So like the group and then request the page.
Okay.
And then, for the deeper, obviously, I work one-on-one with people. The shortest amount of time that I work with somebody is six months.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot, but when we're really working on life change, we meet every week face to face through a Zoom call, right? I work with women all over, actually just even out of this country. But then the online group program will be less private and more group focused so that I can see other people. So if that's something that people are interested in, there's links to my website and you can get on the waiting list or just in the no list.
Okay.
For when all of that.
Gotcha. What's the website? Is that also
changeyourlife.com?
Changeyourlife.com.
I know my web guy was like, that's a big task, but okay, let's do it. So yeah, changeyourlife.com, life nutrition on social media platforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Krystal, I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much.
It did not feel like an hour and 25 minutes, but man, it was, this was fun. I'm excited to do more. Cause I think there's, for as much as we talked, I think there's so much more we can go.
Yeah.
If you're okay with it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm down for it. Maybe, and we can do a little outline to kind of keep your girl here on a train of thought. Because, and that's the thing with this whole conversation. Like
keep me on the train of thought.
We could go down so many paths on this. So I just hope that there's some nuggets, like little seeds were planted to your listeners to kind of like shift the idea that, oh, maybe there's more to this than just what I think there is. Right.
No, this is awesome. This is fantastic.
So good.
Thank you again.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. That's all we have for you today. If you have any questions or want to chat or interested in seeing what we're up to in between episodes, head over to Instagram and Facebook and follow @OakStrength. Also check us out at oakstrength.com. If you like this episode, please share it with someone who wants to live happy, healthy, and strong. If you really liked it, subscribe and review the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast on iTunes or Spotify. Be sure to tune back in next week and remember to keep owning your health.